I didn't write The Psychology of Winning because I was an authority on winning. I wrote it because I was an authority on losing. And if you take what you're doing in life and analyze it, and if you were to do the opposite of what you had failed at and made that part of your life, then you could flip it. If you read biographies, you'll find out that most people coming from uncommonly difficult backgrounds become uncommonly successful. So that therefore, you don't have to be born with any special head start. So I think the idea that I can because other people have, that gives you the passport. And then you say, who will take me there? You say, everyone has good intentions, but they're very busy. So it looks like if I'm going to go fishing, I'm going to have to take myself fishing, because if I wait for somebody else to take me fishing, I may wait a long time. So you get behind the wheel and start driving your life and take responsibility for your outcomes by realizing that every choice has a logical consequence or reward of that choice. So you choose more carefully by thinking before you choose. So I'd say taking responsibility for outcomes, understanding the difference between fear and desire motivation. They're both tremendously strong. Fear tells you you can't, so it's a red light. It tells you you have to, so it's a hammer. It makes you have to do it or something bad will happen. Desire is propulsion rather than compulsion, and desire makes you want to do it and feel you can do it. So better to be motivated on the desire side or reward side than on the penalty of failure side. Penalty of failure works last resort in wartime. It keeps you alive in dangerous situations, but it's no way to live. To live in fear is no way to live at all. You won't take risk because you'll be afraid of the downside. The next thing would be this self-image that we have. Self-esteem is a combination of believing in worthiness, having an identity, belonging to affiliation, and having some competency. But self-image is this imagination of all the different things that a human can be. A lion can't be anything but a lion, but a human can imagine himself or herself to be virtually anything. We're the only ones that seem to have this ability to create something that didn't exist before. Animals live and die instinctively, and they learn from other animals, but humans just create something that never existed before out of these thought patterns that we get. So I would say the freewheeling use of the imagination to create something either innovatively or that didn't exist before and not be afraid of it. Then the other thing would be to direct that imagination. Specificity rules the world. You know, if a goal is a dream with a deadline, if a goal is a target, which it is, if when a goal is defined, it becomes understandable by a computer, that's what a goal needs to be reached. Because a goal has to have a beginning and a reaching point. It has to have material substance to it so that it can be pictured, talked about, written about, emoted about, and becomes a concrete image of achievement in the future. And the mind can't differentiate that between reality and an image, so a goal must be specified. So I like to spend my life asking questions. So how much money do you need? Well, what would be your idea of enough? And they said, well, I want to be rich. I said, no, mind doesn't understand that. Mind doesn't understand peace. Mind understands peace in what way as a result of doing what, of feeling what. When do you want this to happen? When you're my age, how much money would you need after taxes to travel anywhere in the world and have any hospital and have any grandchild ask for help? How much would you need and how much would that be? And if you can define that and project it, you're halfway there. So I would say the specificity of purpose would be one of the things. The other thing would be an awareness of your talents. You're given 5 to 7 enormous talents when you're conceived. There's 19 possible. So what are you good at? How do you know? Who told you? Life is an exploration of talent. And the sooner you find out what you're gifted, the more you'll like it, the better you're at it, and probably the more money you'll make because you're doing what you love so often. Now, you can't always make money out of your passion. Sometimes an artist doesn't make any money till after they're dead. And unless you're a graphic artist today, it's kind of hard just to sit and paint and make a fortune. But if you love to paint or if you love music, you should not save that for later. You should bring that into play so that you have a balance in your life. But for the most part, I think you should bring your talents to work. So you need to dust off your childhood and think about what you were good at from 5 to 15 and what you can hardly wait to do when you're free. So if you had all the money in the world and time were not an object, what would you be doing with your days? Thank God I'm doing with my days what I enjoy doing. Because people say, why don't you retire? And I said, from what to what? They said, why don't you fish? I said, no, I catch a fish and I eat it, or I give it to somebody, but I don't want to fish every moment. They say, well, why don't you? And I said, I do. I help orphans and I help this, and I go to Africa and I write and I sing and I play, but I like to help people. So that having that desire for service, to plant shade trees under which you will never sit, that's my underlying purpose. So that makes me feel like my life is worth spending time on, and then having a purpose behind the purpose, having a positive expectation. I always expect the best and plan for the worst. I love the serenity prayer. I accept everything that's ever happened to me as being history. I cannot change that. I change whatever I can change, which is my response and my anticipation. So I accept the unchangeable, I change the changeable, and I remove myself from the unacceptable. So things that I don't enjoy, I don't like to be around, I'm out. But if it's an obnoxious restaurant, I'm out. If the people are making too much noise, I'm out of there. If there's too much smoke, I go someplace else. So I'm learning that I can remove myself from unacceptable situations and not put myself at risk. But I'm also changing what I can, and the only thing I can change is my anticipation and response. So I have a positive expectation. I believe I'm going to wake up tomorrow. I say safe again when I do. I explain myself in positive ways. When I'm not feeling well, I say I'm feeling better. I'm going to feel better. I think the way you explain your life is one of the most important communication ways, because bad news sells. So people pass on bad news as the fare of the day. That's why all news media is conflagration, because good news is elevator music. So if you're a good news person, hardly anyone's going to listen to you unless you solve problems, and unless you're showing people how to take the problem they have and flip it and reverse it. So I believe in a positive explanatory style. Gee, Dennis, you're not looking so good. Thank you, I'm feeling a lot better. Yeah, I noticed you got some little scabs on your head. Yes, I had some little surgery, but you know, that comes with surfing. Kind of looked like a Ziploc head. Yeah, looks a little weird, but I'll be better next week. Does it hurt? It hurt at the time, but it's being a lot better now. Thanks for asking. So no matter what the situation is, you explain toward the expectation, and people congregate around the winner's locker room. When you're a winner, they want to hear it. When you're a loser, they don't want to hear it, even though the news media always talks about what's wrong. So you can be the solution person. And remember, I came from a feeling of inadequacy and lower self-esteem, so my father could never look at anyone in the eye. So it took me 15 years before I could ever develop eye contact. Usually I would be always looking down and away, always. And it was just, people in the audience would say, who are you looking at? Were you looking at someone in the front row that you knew? And I said, was I? And they said, well, you were looking down. I said, wow, I guess I inherited that from our family, who always could not develop eye contact. So I had a lot of fears, but I had a certain gift to be able to explain things in easy to understand ways. I took the lyricist in me, so I'm a lyricist. And a lyricist is somebody who is unfortunately totally poetic, and it maybe doesn't sell as much today, but it's my thing. So people say, okay, in 30 words, what is it? Your life. And I go, the essence of my life is this: a baby's smile, a loved one's kiss, a book, a tree, the sea, a friend, and just a little time to spend. That's it. I spend my life trying to lyrically form words that try to get a larger message across in a fewer number of words. And that helped me, having a good memory and being a lyricist, somebody who listened to the radio and listened, to be able to spout back things that I'd heard, things that were proverbial. You know, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And winners believe in their dreams when that's all they have to hang on to. And the deep down inside the skin feeling of your own worth, all those kinds of things. Being able to use cliches when you need to, but trying not to be a walking cliche. But I wrote The Psychology of Winning for myself at the worst point in my life. So it's possible then for someone who's not doing well, who is afraid and is tentative about his or her success to reach down in the worst of times to bring the very best out of yourself. So I had been a jet pilot, I had been a warrior, minimal success, not too much success, met Dr. Saul, getting a doctorate but not going anywhere with it, and being paid $100 to speak, not exactly a fortune, speaking to women's clubs and Kiwanis and Rotary and Optimus clubs. Zig Ziglar and I gave 500 speeches before anyone would even pay us for one. So we went the hard way. We went $100 at a time until finally we recorded some that somebody actually clapped. So we went up through the ranks rather than having a bestseller catapult us into the platform. I mention this only because I think it might be important for anybody in the future. I didn't write The Psychology of Winning because I was an authority on winning. I wrote it because I was an authority on losing. And if you take what you're doing in life and analyze it, and if you were to do the opposite of what you had failed at and made that part of your life, then you could flip it. So instead of being Waitley come lately or always late Waitley, I became first to the gate Waitley or always on time Waitley. So I was able to take what I was doing wrong and reverse that with psycholinguistics and neurolinguistics, the ability to reprogram this marvelous autopilot and give myself the things that I wasn't doing. So I wrote about it. I wrote that winners need to be doing this. And fortunately for me, Nightingale Conant did a very good job of direct mailing, and they mailed it out, and they sold $100 million worth of the one audio album, which was the second audio album ever produced of a speaking voice. Earl Nightingale, Lead the Field, and then a couple of other ones. But I got very lucky in the sense that timing of their marketing and of the demand in the market and my own need to flip my life around, it just went together. So I had the great fears. I was never sure that was going to be successful, but I had a hunch. I had a belief deep down that somehow, some way, that I was going to break through.